We open up this episode with a great bronc ride, but don't worry, Boone turns out to be a great horse in the end. Then we're going to share some of the trials and tribulations of the cattle on the ranch and some of the predicaments that they can get themselves into. And make sure that you stick around for a special visit from our neighbor Tiny.
Come on, Tiny.
All that and a lot more on this episode of Low Country Cowboys. His registered name is Weaver's I'm a Boone. Around here we just call him Boone. A good friend of mine named John Ball picked Boone up out in Big Sandy, Montana as a long yearling at a horse sale and brought him home and just sort of turned him out to let him grow up. Around about the summer of Boone's 4-year-old year, John decided to bring Boone over here to put him into our training program. He wasn't really looking for anything spectacular out of Boone, just to make a nice family horse.
So Richard, I did some groundwork with him in the arena and things like that, and I've saddled him quite a few times, and I've probably put just 3 or 4 rides on him. One of those rides, he put me in the fence.
Oh.
And so I said, you know, I know a guy that can handle this fella. So, and it wasn't his fault. It was I'd gotten on and off him about 10 times. Yeah. You know, just on and off, and I threw that right leg over a little bit rough, and he took off.
Just kind of surprised him.
That's right. So I didn't even have my right foot in the stirrup, you know, and he just kind of dumped me. But he needs some hours. That's what he needs.
Well, that's what we do. That's what we're good at. That's for sure. All right. Well, outstanding. Well, we're just going to put him in the regular using string, and you know, I'll treat him just like I do all the other young horses.
Perfect.
And we'll see what we end up with.
That's perfect.
Those first few rides with Boone really weren't all that impressive. I mean, he seemed really distracted mentally, and he just didn't have a good way of moving. But the more time that I spent with Boone, it became more and more obvious that this horse had a lot of talent. I really got high hopes for him. I think he's going to be quite a cow pony. Boy, cattle can really get themselves into a lot of trouble. You know, I wonder if they'd survive if we weren't around here to save them. You know, believe it or not, a steer with his head stuck through the fence is not all that uncommon, especially around here. It's just something that we have to deal with on a regular basis. You know, sometimes the best of intentions can make a situation like this worse. Had we left this calf alone, he probably could have got his head out of the gate okay on his own. But once we start the process, we've got to finish it. If we can just keep him from pulling against the gate, I think everything's going to be okay. You know, this calf's in a dangerous situation, and the last thing we want is for him to get hurt. So Hunter and I talked it over, and we figured the best way to help this calf out is going to be to twist his body the same direction as his head. If we just try to twist his head, we're afraid, honestly, that we might break his neck. But if we can get him off of his feet and get him to where he's not pulling against us, then we can sort of wiggle his head out of that hole. The gate's got him locked pretty tight, so it's going to be tough. Boy, you know, I don't know what to think about this calf. Even if we get him out, I don't know if we want to keep him around here.
Come on, Tiny. Come on, Tiny.
Well, last summer we had this fawn show up in the yard, and we weren't really sure what to think at first. We thought maybe her mama might come and pick her up, but after a couple of days she was still there. We decided she must have been an orphan. So we gave her a little food and gave her a little attention, and she more or less just adopted us, and now she just lives in the yard. I mean, how many kids get to grow up with a deer living in the yard? Those are pretty special experiences, and you just can't get that living in the city. So everything's going along great with Tiny. Until one day she didn't show up, and she was gone for just about a week. When she finally did come home, we knew right away something was wrong. Boone is not the kind of horse that'll suit just anybody. He's got this amazing talent for stopping, and he's just full of cow sense. I love riding horses like that. Since day one, I've been excited to get Boone in front of a cow. You know, we rode him around in the corral some, and I took him out in these hay strips and loped him around on the trails. But now it's time to see what he's made of. That little bucking fit doesn't bother me one bit. Boone got excited when he saw a cow and he just didn't know what to do with himself. Luckily I didn't fall off. You know, that's the sort of thing that I love about a horse like Boone. He started off working nice and quiet, but when that calf took off across the pen, he didn't know what to do but to snap into and start bucking. But the great thing is that when he got done pitching his fit, he went right back to work. And his stops and turnarounds just got deeper and nicer. It was awesome. You know, I'm really fortunate to get to ride a lot of really good horses, and Boone's one of them. I hope that John's pleased. I really think that Boone's got a bright future. So when Tiny hadn't shown up for about a week, honestly, I figured she was a goner. We live close to a highway, and there's deer getting hit out there all the time. I was really surprised when my wife Natalie called me one day and said that Tiny was home. But it was obvious to all of us that she'd been hit by a car, and poor Tiny's leg was broke. So here's the situation. We got a deer with a busted leg. I got 3 kids on one side looking at me. I got my wife on the other side looking at me. I figure, what have I got to lose? I'm gonna fix this deer's leg. Well, I can't really say that I've fixed a broke leg on a deer before, but I've done real similar stuff on cattle, so I figured I could make this up as I go along, you know. Well, the first step in this process is to get this deer subdued so that we can work on her leg without her thrashing around too much. And that's where my daughter Abigail came in. I'm so proud of her because I can't imagine another 15-year-old girl sitting there and holding a wild animal while her dad put the deer's leg back together. I'm pretty proud of her. All right, the next thing we got to do is get our kit together of all the supplies that we're going to need. We're going to need a splint, we're going to need some padding, we're going to need some vet wrap, and we're going to need some tape. So I got all that stuff together and went to work on this deer. The first thing I did was I wrapped it up with that padding, and I just used some paper towels because it's all that I had. And then I whittled a splint out of a hackberry twig, and I just took my knife and knocked all the sharp edges off of it. When I put all that together, I wrapped it up with vet wrap and stuck some tape on it to make sure that it all stuck together. Let's hope that it works. You know, truthfully, I didn't have a whole lot of faith in this whole deal. I mean, I could just think of a million things that could go wrong with a deer running around in the wild with a splint on its leg. That way. Keep going up the hill. Keep going. All right. You just hold him right there, all right? I gotta get on the other side. You might be better with one leg, Hunter. If you just keep it stretched back, I don't think he can get you. I don't think. So we twisted, pulled, and fought with this calf, and finally his head popped out of the fence and he just ran off and he didn't even thank us. I mean, can you believe it? The funny thing about this story is the dirty sucker went and got his head stuck in the fence again the next day. So Tiny's story does have a happy ending. Her leg healed up just fine and she's back to her normal life. You know, she really surprised all of us coming through that as well as she did. And we can only wonder what the future holds for Tiny. What we hope is that she can just go off and find a herd and live a normal deer life.